Okay, we are live, but we shall let it breathe just for a moment. As oddly, I feel a sneeze coming on, like right when I'm trying to go live. Don't look at the light. Don't look at the light. Go away, sneeze. Just got to bring on Facebook, bring on these Instagram peoples. We'll get things cooking. All right. Welcome in, everybody. It's the Mile High Huddle podcast. I'm your host, Chad Jensen, and with me is my fellow football priest. You know him, you love him, Zack Kelberman. Zack, what's going on, brother? How's your weekend been?
Weekend's been pretty good, Chad. It's kind of a slow period right now, as we'll get into over the course of the podcast. But we're rounding the corner now to April. The draft's around the corner, so I'm excited. How was your weekend? How about you?
Yeah, dude. Good weekend. Got to see some family. It's been good. Relative to Broncos news, guys, not a whole heck of a lot, although there was an interesting story that came out today, a very well written and researched story by the Denver Post, that we'll talk about later on. Dre Greenlaw and just some of the events that led to him landing in Denver and spurning the San Francisco 49ers, who made a very strong push to keep him. But Zack, first things first, we touched on this a little bit on Thursday. It was more like we mentioned it, but I decided to title the episode around this because it's worthy of some analysis, and that is ESPN. I mean, well, first of all, back it up. Last year, what was the infamous over-under set for the Broncos from Vegas? 5.5 wins, right? And Sean Payton laughed. He's like, dude, I've never won fewer than 7 games. I've been in the league a long time. But then cut to the Broncos win 10 games. So ESPN bet, Zack, their over-under that they've set initially for the Broncos, 9.5 wins. So do you feel it's appropriate, and are you taking the over or the under?
I'm smashing the over. I feel like we talked about this briefly on Thursday's podcast, Chad, but after winning 10 games with a rookie Bo Nix who had less than a stellar supporting cast, the defense kind of fell apart a little toward the end. You clean up those areas, it's hard not to fathom the Broncos continuing to build with the nucleus they have and winning maybe 11 or 12 games. So, yeah, I think it's fair, and I'm taking the over on that for sure.
Yeah, it's just sweet to see the league coming around a little bit, you know. The disrespect at times last year was, on one hand, Zack, deserved, because we're talking about 8 years of ineptitude. But on the heels, Zack, of Sean Payton's first year, where he improved the win total by 3, right? It goes from the Broncos finished with, was it 5 wins? Yeah, 5 wins under Hackett, 2022. Sean Payton comes in, less than ideal quarterback situation, not a great fit, ends in controversy, got to bench Russ. Russ says that it was a threat, that they were holding his, all this stuff. We won't get into that, but he still won 8 games. And frankly, they were this close from being a 10-win team in 2023, even with Russ. But I digress. Then you cut to the offseason last year. Bo Nix, we don't know who it's going to be yet. They move on from Russ. It's all about get that quarterback in the draft. So in that sense, that point I just made, I understand some of the skepticism. Ooh, Russ is gone, quarterback instability. We don't know who it's going to be. But then once Bo Nix enters the equation, yes, he's a rookie, first-round pick, but you got to have eyes to see the relative fit with Bo Nix. And it's not just Zack, Bo Nix hitting the NFL and it's a rookie. Bo Nix hitting the NFL and it's a rookie, and his head coach and primary shepherd into NFL land is Sean Payton. So that's what makes it so sweet this time around, is like, hey, they vastly underestimated the Broncos last year. And this year it's like, okay, we know what they're about now.
I mean, they made a lot of chicken salad, Sean Payton did, Chad, with the pieces they had on offense anyway, and giving them more of a supporting cast, giving them a running game, or Bo Nix, I should say, giving Evan Ingram at tight end, another receiver through the draft, or a veteran. It's hard not to like the Broncos' chances of reaching double digits again, and maybe even further than they went last season.
What's up, Papa Bear? So good to see you, brother. Thank you for the super chat early before we even went live. He says, good evening, Broncos country, Chad, Zack, and Deacon Scott. Hashtag God bless USA. Let's go, Bo. MHH for life. Buckham times 3. Broncos for life. Thank you, buddy. I see also, David, this might interest you. Wilson on YouTube going, well, who are the Broncos playing? No one knows a prediction. It's so stupid. Well, we know the opponents, Wilson, in case you missed it. I'll educate you on that. Update you, I should say. We know who the opponents are. We just don't know the order in which they're going to be played. As a quick refresher, the Broncos are going to play the Bengals, the Packers, aside from the obvious 2 against each AFC West team. They're going to play the Bengals, the Packers, the Jets. They're going to play all of the teams of the AFC South and NFC East. So we know who the opponents are, Zach, which allows the odds makers, including ESPN Bet, to at least get started on an early over-under. But you'll see those start to solidify, Zach, after the actual schedule comes out.
Yeah, over the course of the offseason, after every major event, this was the over-under after free agency. After the draft, I'm sure we'll have a new one after, the big events of the offseason leading into the regular season. But, Chad, I don't fathom the line going below 9.5. I could even see it going to 10.5 maybe.
And this is also a great point from Michael to the Broncos' benefit this year because it's an odd number of games now since the NFL moved to 17. So you rotate. 1 year you get 9 home, 8 on the road. Next year you get 8 home, 9 on the road. Broncos rotation, 9 at home this year, Zach, 8 on the road. So that's good news. The Ronk checking in. What's up, brother, on Facebook. Good evening, Chad and Zach on the Mile High Huddle podcast. Go Bo Broncos. So good to see you. Hashtag Ronk. Great to have you in the house, my brother. It wouldn't be a conversation without you. I want to get, Zach, more to the exactly too, Mike. It's a third place schedule in 2025. So that's why you're getting the Bengals. That's why you're getting the Packers and the Jets. Man, the AFC West, Zach, it's tough, but the NFC North has become brutal as well.
It has. I mean, pretty much every team in there is a contender. Then you throw in Chicago, which could be better with Ben Johnson as the head coach, second year of Caleb Williams. So, yeah, it's not an easy schedule, but not the furthest, not the hardest either. And if the Broncos can continue to just play a lot of the same ball they did last season with improved pieces here and there, again, I think 10 or 11 or 12 is probable, if not possible.
String Guy says, hi, Chad, Zach, and Scott, Broncos country. If Ashton Jeanty is gone, I'm fine with a nose tackle, a receiver, one of the H-backs. Oh, I see. Henderson or Hampton. I think I like Henderson more than Hampton, though. Same. Yeah, it's a really I think a lot of people, Zach, are split on Henderson v. Hampton. The slight edge, I would say more than slight. Hampton is more widely viewed as the superior prospect, but when you slice that down and get more specific to team fit and what the Broncos are looking for, Henderson rises up a few notches because of what he could do for you as a potential joker. But Hampton, he's going to be a legit stud in the league, guys. I mean, it's going to be a thing. The one drawback with Henderson, Zach, is you got to worry a little bit about his injury history.
Yeah, the foot issues, I think they were definite. I don't know, a yellow flag, if not a red flag, but it's kind of like going to Cold Stone, Chad, and it's choose the flavor of your liking with this running back class. I happen to really like Henderson because of the speed element, the explosive element he brings to the backfield, whereas Hampton's a good 3-down player, kind of in the mold of Kamara. He just doesn't, to me, have the same breakaway speed. Trey Henderson is my guy, and I'd pull the trigger string guy at 20 overall. That's how high I am on his prospects.
The consensus big board has 1, 2, 3, Jeanty, Hampton, Henderson, for what it's worth. And then that's followed shortly by Henderson's backfield mate at Ohio State, Quinshon Judkins, Caleb Johnson from Iowa. Then it goes Cam Scatabo, Dylan Sampson, who is I don't think we should consider him a sleeper, but he's kind of been flying under the radar relative to Broncos country's kind of what Broncos fans are coveting and the guys they mention often. I'm telling you right now, like Dylan Sampson, to me, I would take him over Quinshon Judkins. He'd be right behind Trevion Henderson, Zach.
Yeah, Sampson has more of a speed element, whereas there's players like Devin Neal, for example, or some of the other running backs in this class that are more built for. Judkins, for example, is like a rich man's Audric Estime. Now, that's exciting to have, I guess, as your base, but like I just want that explosive Jahmyr Gibbs type of runner, and that's Henderson. Screams Henderson to me, Judd.
Guys, so much more to get to, including your comments, super chat. I see one sitting. But guys, guess what? It's Final Four time, baby. March basketball rolls on and nothing beats it. So guys, bring the fun of a bracket to every game day by making entries on Underdog. Underdog is one of the leading sports apps you can play right now in your state, but you got to ask yourself, if you want to win up to 1,000 times your money, you can with Underdog.
And here's how to play. Choose whether a player will go higher or lower on one of their stats like points, assists, rebounds, and more. Underdog's got all your favorite leagues, teams, and stars to choose from. Create entries with all basketball picks or mix and match across other sports. You can play with as little as $1, and if you get everything right, you can win up to 1,000 times your money. So turn $1 into $1,000 just with your basketball knowledge.
That's right, guys. I've had so much fun. It's made March Madness so much more interesting, compelling. So download the Underdog app, sign up now using our promo code MHuddle to unlock a special offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you make your first deposit. Join in on the fun with your football priest when you use our promo code MHuddle and claim your special offer today. Get that up to $1,000 in bonus cash upon first deposit.
Must be 18 plus, 19 plus in Alabama, Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus in Massachusetts and then Arizona, and present in the state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org. Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT-STEP to 53342. New York, call a 24/7 Hope line at 1-8778-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. Trying to beat Nick, couldn't do it.
Yeah, it's hard, dude. He's got the Micro Machines guy, the auctioneer thing down pat.
Yeah.
All right, back to the chat we go. I also just starred one, Scott, from a Twitch viewer that we'll get to here shortly. But Proud Zennial in the house. What's up, bro? Proud Zennial says, love the shirt, dude. Oh, thanks, brother. 11-6. And unless you're talking, I mean, maybe you're talking about Zach's nondescript white. I don't know. I think you're probably talking about Descendants, though, right? Like, yeah, probably. 11-6, 12-5. He says Zach sounds reasonable. It'll be very interesting what happens after the draft with extensions, etc. Bo knows Ian from Gilbert. Fun fact, Ian, you like Descendants? Bill Stevenson from Descendants is who produces my band, Bridge the Gap's albums. So good dudes and a genius, by the way. But yeah, Zach's 11-6, 12-5. You feeling that?
I thought the Broncos were trending toward that, Chad, last season, 12-5. We had those the super chats coming the way with the hashtag 12-5. But if things break a certain way, injury luck, Bo takes the next step. They add a few more pieces, which they will, and we'll see how the schedule breaks and how the games are aligned. Yeah, right now, you held a gun to my head. I think 11-6 would be my record prediction for the Broncos.
All right, we also have one here from the Duchess, Michaela Parker, checking in on a Sunday night. Love it.
Thank you, Michaela.
Love you, Michaela. Great to see you this evening. Hope you've had a good weekend. She says, what if we get both Hampton and Henderson and later Scatabo? Which is interesting, Zach, because we put up a short from a conversation, I don't know, 2-3 episodes back where, it's a little bit hyperbole. You're like, draft 1, draft 2, heck, draft 3 running backs, right? And the shorts rolling around and whatnot. But when you get down to brass tacks and the reality of the situation, 3 running backs. But hey, what do you think? Hampton, Henderson, Scatabo, that would be a running back core to be reckoned with.
It would definitely fix the Broncos' most glaring weakness. And I think it's definitely possible, Chad, they take 2. It's such a deep class. They take 1 early, 1 late. I don't know about 3, but we'll see. I don't know. And here's the disagreement, Michaela. I mean, it's all preference. I just don't see it with Scatabo. Maybe I'm dumb. Maybe my eyes are blind. I just don't see it with him. He's a nice complementary piece, but not a guy I'd want to make my feature running back. But in your scenario, he wouldn't be the feature back anyway. So if they can nail either Hampton or Henderson, they'd be walking away from the draft feeling plenty good, though. And thank you, as always.
I like Scatabo. I think he would be a nice additional asset to help upgrade the room. I don't think he's necessarily going to be the answer, but you might not come out of the 2025 draft with the answer. There's it's a great class. It's a deep class. I only say that you might not come out with what you want because it still is the NFL draft. It's a crapshoot. You don't know who's going to take who in front of you. By the time you get to where you're picking, the equations change. But in an article that is coming up here from Keith Cummings at MHH, he cited something that Bucky Brooks of NFL.com warns of teams like the Broncos, talking about Cam Scatabo. And I'm just going to quote a few pieces of this here. He says, Scatabo is a violent runner with a rugged frame that forces defenders to make business decisions in the hole. The 5'9.5", 219-pounder displays outstanding balance and body control while running through arm tackles in traffic. Scatabo pinballs off defenders, displaying exceptional strength, power, and agility with the ball in his hands. A first-team All-American this past season at Arizona State and a former Big Sky Offensive Player of the Year at Sacramento State. Scatabo is a three-down player with the running skills and pass-catching ability, according to Bucky, to handle the entire workload as a lead back. Though concerns about his long speed, that's where the, I guess, caution comes in, could depress his draft stock. Scatabo's production, 2,300 scrimmage yards and 25 total touchdowns last season alone, and explosiveness make him a wise bet as a potential RB1. Close quote from, again, Bucky Brooks, Zach of NFL.com. He's one of the few analysts, the bona fide draft nicks, like bona fide draft czars, who have viewed or analyzed Scatabo, that I've read anyway, Zach, as a legitimate receiving threat. He's viewed more as like a bell cow guy, like run dudes over, hard to bring down, great balance. But does he have that breakaway speed? No. So he could be a three-down back, Zach, but in the same kind of way, not as, don't misinterpret what I'm saying here, but so is Javonte Williams a three-down back. That doesn't necessarily mean anything. Is he a difference maker is the question.
Exactly. It's a good point. And, you know, the type of runners before him that came around the NFL, like Mike Allstott or Peyton Hillis, they seem to be kind of gimmicky. They weren't long-term solutions. And with that type of running style, Chad, you'd have to wonder how long he held up in the NFL without getting injured. So, again, my opinion, I would like my running back, my workhorse, my RB1 to have more of that, like you said, long breakaway speed, and Scatabo's not that guy. So there's like 5 or 6 other runners I would take before. But again, it's choose your preference, choose your flavor.
The Broken Pirates, we always try to get a Twitch comment or question on each and every show. Broken Pirates jumping in to say, why does everyone want a running back so bad? We have a few good ones still on our roster. Don't we have bigger needs? No, I would argue to you, my friend, all due respect, we do not have bigger needs. The Broncos, Zach, filled all their major holes in free agency, right? Linebacker, safety, brought back DJ Jones because you don't have to worry about nose tackle. They brought in a tight end to vastly upgrade, if they can keep him on the field, the room in Evan Ingram. So those holes were filled, but they haven't touched running back yet. And not only that, Zach, but their starter walked out the door. So running back, it's starting to evolve and kind of tilt back toward the way it used to be viewed as like a premium position. Whereas in the preceding 10 years, by the years, Zach, it had kind of been devalued, but it's starting to climb back up to where teams are making it more of an emphasis, even though, notwithstanding, you can still, and if you look across the roster, the NFL, the rosters, and many of whom the difference makers, the starters, the number ones and number twos, Zach, they came out of the late rounds or even the undrafted ranks. So you can find those caliber of runners, like what I'm getting at in that point, Zach, across the entire college rank landscape, draft, etc. But it's becoming more and more apparent to teams that the ones that actually have a premium back, it's a feather in the cap, so to speak. Broncos don't have that, Zach.
Well, with the expansion of the passing game in the NFL, Chad, that's why it's such a quality if your running back can catch passes and be the joker that Sean Payton wants, the Alvin Kamara type or the Jahmyr Gibbs type that I really want, that I think Trey Henderson is. So Broken Pirates, everyone, again, it's subjective. Everyone has their own opinion. I just don't see anyone really good or even worth keeping on the Broncos roster. Estime, McLaughlin, Blake Watson, these are all Jags. I hate to say it. They performed admirably last season, but they are the definition of replaceable. And that is why the Broncos are going to take probably 2 running backs in this year's class.
The Duchess jumping in again. Thank you, Michaela. We love you. She says, I meant either get, Hampton or Henderson in the first round and then get Scatabo in the later rounds fully. Okay, I got you. So, I think that's definitely on the table as a possibility. It does depend on how the board falls. But, if you could come out of there with Hampton and later Scatabo or Henderson, it would be a better compliment. Hampton and Scatabo to me are similar in terms of the boxes they check, even though Hampton's a more, I think, explosive, dynamic, obvious guy who could be an immediate difference maker. But like if you were to pair Henderson and Scatabo, that could be dynamic. If you were to pair Hampton and say Dylan Sampson, that could be something special to behold.
Or Hampton and like Jaden Blue, just a pure speed runner. There's so many different varieties in this year's class, but Michaela, that makes it more palatable for me. If you end up with Trey Henderson in the first or the second, and then in the middle rounds you grab a power back like Scatabo, that to me is the thunder and lightning that would appeal to me, and I'm sure Sean Payton as well. Thank you again.
Randy Jones, what's up, dude? From the
Wow.
Great White North, from the
Thank you,
top
Randy.
rope,
Thank
traveling
you.
vast distances. Great to see you, brother, from Alaska, one of our great Alaskan community members. Been a long time Super Chat superstar, and it's been a minute. So, yeah, he says a live broadcast. Imagine that. It's great to see you, buddy. Hope you've been well. Hope you're doing okay up there. And, yeah, go Bo Broncos. It's great to see Randy Jones back in the house, Zach.
Yes, sir. An OG from way back in the day. Thank you so much, Randy, for gracing us with your presence tonight. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free and we'll circle back. Good to see you, bro.
Awesome to see you, man. And thank you for that generosity on kind of a sleepy Sunday amidst a weekend of zero news that helps us keep the lights on. So thank you, Randy. You are the man. And again, really good to see you again. We also have here Victor Espinoza jumping in. What's good, brother?
Thank you, Victor.
Happy to see you. Says, good afternoon, fellas. Stoked for the draft. Going with 11 wins with 2 or 3 nail biters.
Naturally.
Looking at Quinshawn Judkins for our running back this year. Cheers, guys. Year 2, hashtag year 2 Bo, hashtag MHH for life. Yeah, Judkins, Zach, he's no slouch. I mean, even though for Zach and I, he kind of plays second fiddle to Travion, just like he did in the actual Buckeyes backfield. He's very good. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, he consensus big boards, 4th ranked back. I'm trying to pull this up real quick. Hold on. Quinshawn and Eric. I'm just pulling up Eric's scouting report. But Zach, what are your thoughts on Quinshawn Judkins?
I like him more than Scatabo. I would take him first over Scatabo, but I kind of lump him in that same bucket where he's more of a power back. And like you said, I'm way bigger fan of a speed guy like Trey Henderson.
A couple things. I'll just read like his fit. This is what Trickle said about Judkins. And guys, the ridiculous amount of time he has spent watching this dude's film would probably make you sick. But here's what he wrote as a summation of after the scouting report at the bottom. How does he fit with the Broncos? Quote, Judkins is a power back who would fill the same role in Sean Payton's offense as Audric Estime. Although Judkins is a more talented back, the fit would rely on the Broncos' willingness to keep Estime in a limited role. So close quote, he is a bigger back, but he's also very explosive. He's got some burst. And his third down, at least what we've seen of him so far, Zach, it seems that his third down upside would be pretty much limited to being a pass pro guy.
But if you take Judkins, you're still in the same boat as you are now with Estime. You need the speed guy. So you'd have to double down in the later rounds and go after whoever and supplement that pick. So a nice player, not my, or I think yours, Chad, I could speak for you, not my first running back I would pick.
No, but I wouldn't hate it. Like if the Broncos took him at the end of, 51 toward the back end of the second round, I would not hate it. In fact, looking at depending on who was on the board. Yeah, I mean he's currently the 48th overall player on the consensus big board. So if the Broncos took him at 51, that would technically be good value. Zach Vignolo checking in. What's up, bro? Great to see you on Facebook. Thank you for being with us. Says, hey guys, been a long time watcher. Always appreciate your opinions and insight on Broncos football. Well, welcome, bro. Says, I personally hope we get Henderson, the running back, and Oregon tight end Terrence Ferguson. Watched his highlights with Bo Nix. They have a very good chemistry and connection. Hashtag Broncos country. Yeah, and what else is cool, Zach, about Ferguson is the fact that he's a Denver native. And as you mentioned, the Bo Nix tie that would ostensibly, hopefully anyway, help him hit the ground running a little bit faster, we would hope anyway, as a pro, Zach. But he also was very impressive at the combine, and we know the Broncos met with him there formally.
Yeah, and you have to plan for life after Evan Ingram. It's exciting the Broncos signed him, and he's not going to be here forever. He's not going to be producing at a high level forever. You need to have that younger player in the mix. And Ferguson is one of my favorite prospects in this draft class, simply because of how athletic he plays his position. Chad, you can move him around the formation. You talk about joker. I know we're all sick of hearing that word, but that pretty much is the epitome of a joker for Sean Payton. So you come out of this draft with those two players, Zach, and welcome to the manger. I'd be very, very happy.
Mark Knapp checking in also on Facebook. Great to see so many of our great Facebook community members. Happy to see you, Mark. He says, do you guys feel Denver needs any cornerback help? I like Kobe Bryant, not to be confused with Kobe Bryant, from the ball hawk from Kansas in the 4th round. Yeah, he's an interesting prospect. I think it's a preemptive. If you draft a corner this year, it's a preemptive move because, yeah, you've got Surtain locked down, Zach, but Riley Moss now is going to be entering year 3. He's your other starter. And after this year, let me think. Yeah, after this year, Jaquan McMillan, I should say, it becomes no longer a restricted. He's a restricted free agent this year. Or no, exclusive rights. Then he becomes a restricted free agent. Yep. So depending on how he next year, depending on how McMillan plays this coming season, you're not sure he's going to be worthy of a restricted free agent tender, or if he outkicks that coverage, it's a good problem to have. But that's why I think in part it would be smart to bring on a corner through the draft, but it's not something that I think is a burning need, so to speak.
Exactly. They also have Chris Abrams-Drain, who we're both pretty high on, that he can maybe be a cornerback 2 of the future opposite PS2. So yeah, I'd wait till the later rounds. It's certainly not a pressing need. If they want to add one to the mix, so be it, but I'm not rushing to do that.
Scott's like, dude, you're missing an opportunity. You could have said, and I actually almost did in real time. I don't know why I didn't, but it flashed through my brain. The ball hawk who was a Jayhawk, right? Mark Knapp, you feel us on that? All right, cool. Kobe Bryant, not to be confused with Kobe Bryant. Does that make any sense to you? I hope so. Phil McLaughlin, what's up, brother? Down in Tucson. Great to see you, buddy. Good evening, Chad, Zach, and Deacon Scott in Vegas. We'll watch later. Thanks for all you do for Broncos country. Hashtag Buckham MHH for life. Thank you, Phil. And, just remember what happens in Vegas sometimes follows you home. Remember from the hangover? I'm just joshing, I'm just joking, but have fun down there. Stay safe, big dog.
Except one thing, that stuff stays with you everywhere.
Exactly. That's what I'm talking about.
Thank you, Phil. Have fun in Vegas. Stay safe, buddy.
Did you know that The Hangover was, stupid trivia, here you go, the number 1 R-rated, highest grossing R-rated movie of all time until a certain movie in recent history broke that? Could you guess what that movie might be?
No.
I'll give you one hint. It's got, comic book heroes in it.
Oh, one of the Avengers movies?
Nope. Those are all kid rated.
I have no idea.
I'll end the suspense. Deadpool. Original Deadpool broke it, but great movie. All right, back to yeah, exactly. Scott guessed right. George, or he might have been like this, Googling it real fast. Like, I'm gonna be jumping the punch. Just kidding. George Fox, what's up, bro? Hello, guys. Is there anyone that you would be upset if we draft him in round 1? Yeah, Jackson Dart. I'd be upset. What are you doing? Just kidding. They're not going to draft a quarterback in the first round. MHH for life. Hit the thumbs up, guys. It's not going to happen, but like if they took Shamar Stewart, the edge from, I hope it's not going to happen, dude. Because as soon as that came out of my mouth, I think it was Nick's last 3-round mock draft. He had Shamar. I think he took Shamar. I think. Anyway, watching him at the Senior Bowl, he looks the part. You see him, like Scott uses the phrase, if you use him as the first guy off the bus, right, to kind of like intimidate or set the visual tone to the opponent or whatever, but he looks like Tarzan, played like Jane, and best he could do is 1.5 sacks in the SEC in a season. You're going to draft him in the first round. I would hate it. Watching him for those 3 days too, he didn't seem all that stoked on being there. Didn't play with much intensity. He's one guy I would be unhappy, George, and he's kind of he's in that zone. He's definitely in that zone.
It's tough. I don't know that there's any player I would be upset with the Broncos landing because they're all blue chip players that can help out the team and no matter where they play. One position that comes to mind, though, would be safety. So like Nick Emenwari, who I've seen mocked to the Broncos, I'd be pretty, I guess, upset because they just don't need him. They need a running back. They need, maybe they could use a receiver or defensive line. Taking a safety there would, I guess, by the definition of this question, George, upset me. Maybe Walter Nolan, too, considering the character concerns that I've read about with him, too.
Real quick, I just want to give some thoughts up and prayers to James here, who says, good evening, hope all is well. We're here in Ohio getting ready for these thunderstorms and possibly tornadoes here. Sorry to hear that, brother, that it's coming your way, but our thoughts and prayers are with you. Stay safe. Thanks for being with us tonight. And hashtag state of being, bro. Eric Flynn throwing down some stars on Facebook. Always great to see Eric in our nightly conversations. Hope you're doing well. And I think we're pretty much caught up. Now, there was a couple questions or a couple comments I wanted to grab from earlier. And here's Rodney Garcia. Thank you for your persistence, my friend, and always being in the chat. Amika Egbuka, Ohio State receiver at pick 20. Zach, how would you feel about that?
I wouldn't hate it. Not my plan A, maybe not my plan B, but he could be in the mix for plan C. I like him more than other receivers at that spot, like Tet or Luther Burden, who I agree with Dylan. I think he's redundant to what Marvin Mims brings to the table. Egbuka, he separates well. He has late hands. He catches well in traffic. I would really like to see what he can do as the Batman to, or the Robin to Cortland Sutton's Batman.
Indeed. I would love it. I would dig it. I would be like, well, what running backs did you step over to take him? I'd be curious, but I don't think Egbuka would be the pick at 20. Just my prediction if Hampton were still on the board, for what it's worth. But Glenn Ashley, what's up, dude? From down under, checking in from Oz, saying good morning. See, he's from the future. Chad, Zach, Deacon Scott, Broncos country. We have spoken in depth about receivers, tight ends, running backs, D-line. Other than Gray Zabel or Jared Wilson, who do you like us taking at center? Isn't it weird how we're the only other English-speaking culture that doesn't spell center the way he spelled it? That's how like Keith would spell it. I think Canadians spell it that way. The Australians, the Brits, Canadians, probably the New Zealanders. Not that there aren't other English-speaking countries, but kind of interesting. Hashtag state of being MHH for lifetime. Like trust in Peyton and Peyton. Yeah. Not really, dude. I mean, if you want, we can let me refresh myself with the interior offensive line big board. For what it's worth, the top ranked guy is Alabama's Tyler Booker, who is big boarded as the 26th overall best prospect. Gray Zabel checks in as the 30th overall and the second ranked. Also, you got to remember Donovan Jackson, the kid from Ohio State. Marcus Bow from Purdue is probably the other name I was going to mention. But really, Zabel, man, just seeing him, I get it that Booker is ranked higher, but watching him in person, he just makes an impression, dude. So that would still be my number one guy if you're going to take interior offensive line in the first round.
Yeah, I'll throw out a day 3 name only because I wrote about him recently. Texas State's Nash Jones, who had a top 30 with the Broncos. He played tackle, he played guard, and he kicked at center during the I think the Shrine Bowl. He had a couple good reps at that spot too. So someone to keep in mind on day 3 would be Nash Jones for me anyway.
Thank you, Glenn. It's really good to see you. Okay, Zach, I'm going to take a second to segue to the other somewhat. Well, actually, we don't keep the Duchess waiting. So hold on one more time. Michaela, Chad, did I tell you I bought that I bought your album? Good stuff. Which one? Secret Combinations or the new one that's coming out in 11 days, Gainsayer? That's the one you want. I'm telling you right now. But thank you so much, Michaela. Next time I see you, I'm happy to bring you some stickers and stuff. So let me know. But thank you so much for doing that. I'll tell the dudes in the band, they'll be stoked. And I know you've met one of them. You met Jeff at the meet and greet. He always comes and helps me out. The guys in MHH know him, and anyone who's been to the meet and greets the last 3 years, you've met Jeff. But that's really cool, Michaela. Thank you so much, my friend. Zach. All right. Fred Warner. This is interesting. Well, first of all, I want to give credit to the Denver Post's Luca Evans, who I got to tell you, wrote a very excellent piece detailing kind of the inside scoop on how Dre Greenlaw landed in Denver. And part of his reporting was, of course, that San Francisco's shot callers, John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan, they flew to Greenlaw's home in Texas after the Broncos had made their big offer and he was kind of weighing it. They flew in person to sway him to take their offer and stay in San Francisco, but he didn't. He spurned him, so to speak, took the offer, went to Denver. And we learned through this article, kind of interesting, that some of the advice he was being given, because remember, in San Francisco, he played next to arguably the best inside linebacker in the NFL, Fred Warner. And so they were a great complement to each other. But some of the advice Greenlaw reportedly was receiving was, hey, in San Francisco, you're always going to be Scottie Pippen to Fred Warner's MJ. So go be MJ somewhere else. In other words, go somewhere else where you have the space to be the MJ. And so that's obviously was part of it. Wanting a fresh start, kind of a reset, etc. But Zach, one other thing I want to mention here is a quote. It was Fred Warner kind of laying out a prediction, breaking his silence on Greenlaw, sounding off, whatever little catchphrase you want to use. But here's what he said, quote, "In my opinion, Greenlaw is just getting started. He's still so young in this game. And unfortunately for us, the Broncos got him at the perfect time, man, where you can expect a lot of great things from him going forward in Denver." Zach, does that get you more excited for Dre Greenlaw?
I didn't think it'd be possible because I love the signing so much. But yeah, I mean, every time I saw him in San Francisco, Chad, he seemed to be making a play on the field. And I said to myself, man, I wish the Broncos had an off-ball Scott with a player like that capacity. So I'm super excited about the signing, and I think you can move him around the formation too. You know, a lot of people forget he played a little outside edge rusher. So to see what VJ is going to do and how he's going to attack the offenses with Greenlaw, it's going to help out everyone else playing behind him and in front of him.
Sorry, I was just sending a message to Michaela Parker. GLP in the house, legendary, mythical, Mount Rushmore, Super Chat superstar. He goes hard, this man, and we love him. Gary, great to see you tonight, bro. He says, better late than not at all. That's right, dude. Hi, guys. Love the positive vibes. With the improvement to all areas, expectations for a 12-win season don't seem like a reach. Go Broncos. Yeah, the positivity's been good. It was kind of weird. I won't wax poetic like I've done before. Kind of the almost apathetic vibe that we were getting from fans. Not you guys. You guys are the hardest of the hardcore. I'm talking the general vibe. Through January and like most of February, fans were like, yeah, we got it made in the shade. We're good. Wake us up when free agency gets here. And then free agency got here and fans got re-engaged. And now it's been really fun the last 3 weeks or so. But Zach, there's no doubt about it. That apathy is a bad word to put, a bad way to describe it, although that's how it feels from the outside. It was more like, again, confidence to where, you know, it's like, hey, we got our quarterback. We got our coach. We won 10 games. We made the freaking playoffs. I don't need to read everything Chad and Zach are writing in the offseason. I don't need to be on at every podcast. You know, people like my dad, shout out Mark Jensen, the legendary. You know, he's like, hey, wake me up when September rolls around. When I first started doing this, he's like, what do you do for the, you know, January, February, March, April, May, June, July, when there's no football? Like, what do you do? I'm like, yeah, we'll see. Guys like that, they don't understand that there are sickos in the world like us that want to talk about it 12 months a year, Zach.
And from where I stand, Chad, the Broncos today are a better football team, on paper anyway, than they were when they walked off the field at Buffalo. And that's before the NFL draft. And that's when they're going to add more pieces. And we'll see how the schedule shakes out, like we talked about earlier. But it's hard not to be optimistic. We're not saying that they're going to be winning the Super Bowl or taking down Kansas City, or guaranteeing that, I should say. But it's hard not to predict they're going to improve from last season when they won 10 games. And they did so, Chad, pretty much on merit. There's even a few in there they should have won, like the second Chargers game, like the Bengals game. They could have had a 12-win season last year. So, again, it's hard not to feel the positive vibes, Gary. And thank you so much, as always.
For sure. Eric Flynn jumping in again to ask, how do you feel about our position depth, and what position outside a running back needs better depth? Well, I think offensive line depth is a bit of a concern. Your starting unit is solid, really it's as solid as it gets in the NFL. You're starting 5, but it's pretty rare, even with a team, Zach, that has upgraded its sports science, player wellness, strength and conditioning program as the Broncos have done over the last 2 years, it's still pretty rare for an entire 5-man unit up front to play every single snap in a season. So they hedged a little bit. They brought back Matt Pert, the offensive tackle. They have Alex Palczewski. So you've got at least 2 swing tackles you're comfortable with. But when Alex Forsythe is really the only other thing you have the same guy that got just demolished and thrown on his rear end in that Kansas City Chiefs game with the block kick, you could use some infusion, Zach, of offensive line depth. But I would also throw safety in there. I don't think that JL Skinner is ever going to be a thing. Hate to say it, unfortunately. And I just blanked on the other kid's name, dude, that we drafted a few years before, the year before him. What was his name, dude? Turner Yell. Turner Yell. So safety, linebacker depth. What else you got, Zach?
Tight end, because behind Evan Ingram, it's Adam Troutman, and that's yikes right there. Defensive line, you have to pay your starters and Zach Allen. It's why a lot of people are thinking the Broncos should go defensive line in the first round, but starters want to get paid. You have JFM up for a contract, Zach Allen, Malcolm Roach, and behind them is not much tangible depth that you can rely on. So I would piggyback off yours with those two, Chad.
Well said, my brother, and a good question, Eric. Thanks, buddy. We love it when you actually ask questions, dude. Taylor Christensen jumping in. What's good, bro?
Thank you, Taylor.
Soon to be a dad. Really stoked for you. Sup, fellas? Do we still take a middle linebacker in the draft? Also, with Nick Bonito, Zach Allen, Cortland Sutton due for an extension, is John Franklin Myers on the outs, especially with what he said? Well, I'm trying to remember what he said other than just kind of making it obvious on Twitter, X, that he wants a new contract. He didn't do it in an obnoxious way, to be frank. He just made it clear, like, hey, don't forget about me, kind of thing. I thought he did it with relative class. But so let's start with the first one, Zach. Do you see the Broncos taking an inside linebacker in the draft?
Yeah, at some point. I don't know about round 1, like with Jihad Campbell, but like somewhere along the line, I think they're going to bolster that unit. I don't know how they truly feel about Drew Sanders, but they have to add there. So at some point, Taylor, I just don't know early on that they're going to address it.
If they end up getting, say they take Hampton in the first round, I could see them taking UCLA's Carson Schwessinger, linebacker, in the second round, and he's a stud. He's an absolute stud. Although there's one thing about him, Zach, that makes me a little uncomfortable, and that is the association he has with UCLA relative to Greg Dulcich, not because it's UCLA, but because both were walk-ons. Oh, that's the one thing I'm like, eh. But then again, I was the guy that was like, no on Ohio State quarterbacks till someone finally breaks the streak. I'm like out on Ohio State quarterbacks, and then finally CJ did. But David Youngkin, what's up, bro? I keep saying it, 11-6 or 12-5. Said it at the end of last season. In case you missed it, guys, ESPN Bet set the early over/under on the Broncos win total at 9.5. So we're getting everybody's predictions, and we appreciate you sharing yours, David. 11-6 or 12-5. I think an 11-win season would be phenomenal for the Broncos, and I'm somewhere between 10 and 11 wins at this point early. Wait till the draft, and I'll give you something a lot more solid. Trust.
And especially in after the draft, we'll have the schedule release come out, David, and we'll do a whole show about that, predicting the Broncos schedule. So it's going to be fun. And I think Chad and I, like usual, are going to fall in the same area, about 10 or 11 wins for 2025.
But guys, we have a few messages for you. Then we're going to check the chat one last time before we dip out. So get any burning questions, supers, etc. in the chat now before we bounce, and we will be sure to get you squared away.
Tremendous episode, as always, of the Mile High Huddle podcast. If you're not doing so, please follow us on X at the MHH Pod. You can follow the main account on X at Mile High Huddle, Chad at Chad and Jensen, myself at Kelberman NFL, and Scott, our producer, at Scout Kennedy. If you guys want some merch like we're rocking each and every single podcast, check out mhhmerch.com and get you some. If you haven't done so yet, please drop us a like at facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod. You can find us on Instagram at Mile_High_Huddle. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, make sure you're leaving your Football Priest a 5-star review for a chance to win some merch each and every single month. But if anything, y'all, please, 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 it's very important you subscribe, you like, you share this video and every video you see on the MHH channel. It really helps us grow and reach more Broncos fans just like you.
Hey, a couple of shouts here real quick before we get to the superstars and supporters. Adam says, greetings, Chad and Zach, from your #1 Australian fan. Loving the offseason moves. So pumped for the season to start.
Thank you, Adam.
Adam, good to see you, buddy. Thanks for checking in and appreciate your support. Taylor Christensen.
Congrats, my brother.
Wrong. My son was born, he says, a couple weeks ago, fellas. Dude, congrats. Maybe Scott, do you remember that? Us knowing that? But Taylor and I were messaging because I was trying to get him on. We haven't booked, but we were trying to get him on earlier for a superstar segment because he's never been on. And he's like, the date I picked, that's right. The date I picked, you're like, oh no, that's pretty close to the due date. I might, or whatever. So I forgot that. So congrats, bro. He says, want to let you guys know when I come on the pod in a couple weeks. Thanks, guys. Keep up the great work. MHH for life.
Thank you, Taylor.
Awesome, dude. Well, congrats to you, Taylor. That's great news. Eric Flynn, I don't always have a question, but I support what you guys do. Exactly, dude. Don't get it twisted. That's not me complaining at all. I'm like, I just like hearing what's on Eric's mind every once in a while. It's really cool, bro. So that's what this is about. Feel free every time you jump in, feel free to sound off. The Ronk saying, great show tonight, Chad and Zach on the MHH podcast. Go Bo Broncos. Thank you, brother. The mayor. And then one last topic, then we're dipping. Todd Ostendorf saying, I would love for the Broncos, Zach, amidst all of our first round speculation and predictions, he's saying, I would love for the Broncos to trade back.
It depends how the board falls, Todd, and we really won't know until we know when the draft starts. It's not Sean Payton's first inclination. It's not mine. I'd rather the Broncos stay put and just take whoever is BPA on their board. But if the board falls a certain way and they don't like a player, or a team wants to come up for Jackson Dart, that's the new rumor now, Chad, and they want to come up into 20 to try to get ahead of Pittsburgh, then you might explore it. But I'm not going to trade back for the sake of trading back. If they like a running back and he's there, just take him. If they like a receiver and he's there, just take him. If they like a defensive lineman and he's there, just take him. That's my philosophy. I'm
telling you, Jackson Dart, and maybe this will end up through the fullness of time being viewed as a freezing cold take, but he's not a first round guy, dude. I'm telling you. Now, I'm not trying to be Jackson's version of the Bo Nix haters back, a year ago. I'm just saying what I saw from him. He's impressive in his own right, okay, but he didn't jump off the field, so to speak, when we were watching him at the Senior Bowl for 3 days. Like he was probably, I would say he was the best quarterback there overall. Would you, Scott? Like overall, was he the best quarterback we watched? Who would you say was better? Because Shuck was pretty good at times. The Notre Dame kid was pretty good at times. Milroe is just a freak, but he's a little too. Yeah. Hold on. Yeah, Shuck, the Louisville kid. So anyway, interesting player, but I see him like, hey, take him in the second round, but he'll get overdrafted, Zach, because it's the NFL.
Of course, yeah. And he's what Bo Nix was last. He's everything. They said Bo Nix was second round talent, shouldn't be a first round pick. That's actually Jackson Dart.
But I wish him the best, and shoot, man, I hope he does go in the first round. That'd be great for him. But guys, a mile high salute and a special shout out to the great Super Chat superstars and supporters tonight, helping us keep the lights on. David, always out of the gates, even before we go live. So consistent, man. It means the world to us. Thank you, Papa Bear. The Ronk, proud Zennial checking in with his descendants love. That's awesome, dude. Glad to find someone else in the tribe. The Duchess, multiple supers. Love you, Michaela. Shout out to the Broken Pirates, by the way, on Twitch, but I got to take him out of this bucket in particular. Randy Jones checking in again. So good to see you in a live stream again, brother. Victor, Phil McLaughlin, George Fox, Mark Knapp, Zach Vignolo, Eric Flynn, the GLP, Gary Palmer, Taylor Christensen, David Youngkin, and I think that's covering everybody. So thank you guys. We'll be back tomorrow, Monday night, MHH pod. We'll see what kind of news and interesting things come our way via the Bronco beat. But until then, have a great start to your week.
We'll see you tomorrow night. Have a great rest of your Sunday. Take care. And as always, go Broncos.